Hello, everybody. Can you all hear me fine? Hello. Okay. Um, so I think we've been experiencing a lot of rain today in Karachi. So a lot of the participants must have power outages at home. I think we can get started for now, and then the other participants can join uh, whenever they can. Um, Samina, could you let me share my screen, please? Thank you. Okay, so let's get started. So basically, we're all here today to learn a bit about Scrum, just get into this basics of Scrum, understand what it is, how to, move by it, and a bit about myself. I'm a product manager. I'm working at Folio 3 since the past year and a half, and I've been working in the product domain since almost 3 years. And in the past 3-4 years that I've been working, I have worked excessively with the Scrum framework. I worked with planning sprints. I worked in a Kanban board as well. So most of the companies here now in Karachi over the globe are now going agile, especially software companies, especially product-based companies, because things are moving very fast, and we really don't have the time to sit back and wait for an entire process to be over before we move on to the next one. So for that purpose, people are going more agile. People are moving at a faster pace than before. So I have been working. I studied from fast computer science, and I've been working for the past 4 years in the software industry. And what I've learned so far is that, things have to be really quick. You have to be very quick on your feet, whether you're a product manager, whether you're a software engineer, whether you're a QA, regardless of your designation, regardless of the role that you have in the company or in the project, you have to be very fast and efficient. So moving forward, the topics that we're going to be covering today is the introduction to the Agile, Scrum overviews, the Scrum stakeholders, artifacts, benefits of being Agile, and a few of the most important Scrum Master interviews, and followed by question sessions. Whatever you guys can ask me questions in the middle as well, and you can ask in the end as well. Okay, you guys can tell me whether or not I should continue in Urdu, or I mean in English, or should I switch to Urdu, whatever you guys are comfortable with.
I guess you say you should continue in whatever you are more comfortable with, and most of us are pretty much okay with the way you've been conducting it so far.
All right, that's okay. Um, okay, so moving forward, what is exactly Agile? What is the world of Agile? How are we going to if we are to understand what Agile is, what agility is, what are the basics that we should learn, and what are the foundations that we should get to know about? Could you please mute yourself? Thank you. Okay. So just a textbook, definition of agile. So basically, a bunch of very smart people, very smart software developers. They sat together way back when, 20 years ago, and they realized that we're doing things very lazily. We're doing things very excessively. Things that shouldn't be done are being done. So they uncovered better ways of making the software to value specifics instead of the entire process, the entire you know business idea. So uh, they valued individuals and interactions over processes and tools, a working software over tons and tons of documentation where you look like that big pile of BRDs and requirement documents where things are so excessive that even if I even if I have built it myself, even if I have written it myself, a couple of days later I'll be really lost about what I wrote. Then customer collaboration over contract negotiation, making sure that you're talking to the customer, making sure that you're understanding the customer instead of, going over legalities, over, contracts and everything, and responding to change over following a plan. This is the most important one in agile. Why we choose to be agile in most of the companies right now is because things are changing. The market is changing. Like every day we wake up and there's some new technology, there's some new software that is making the other software obsolete. So you have to be very adaptive. You have to be very much responsive to the outside materials that are being thrown at you. So the things on the right, they do matter. The processes, the tools, documentation, they do matter, but giving importance to them over the stuff on the left is not something that we do in agile. So how exactly should we be agile? So basically have a self-organized team. So if most of you have worked in a software house, you must see that for every product, if it's a service-based company, for every product there's a certain number of people that are working on it. It's not like the entire company, except if it's a product-based company. But even if it's a product-based company, there are certain modules that or certain sections that certain people are working on. So those certain modules or those certain projects are handled by a self-organized team. That makes it better to that helps the people better interact, help the people communicate better. Because if I have to tell one thing to 20 people and then I have to explain it all to them over and over again, then it's my time wasted and then their time wasted in understanding it. So it's better if I just keep it limited to like 7-8 people who exactly have to know what I have to tell them, like, in terms of the product, in terms of the project. And that makes it better for the hierarchy to understand, okay, this is the point person from this team. He's going to tell me what's going on. I'm not going to ask 20 people the same thing about what's going on. So the focus of development is creating the software which values business in each iteration. It's not about what you have to do tomorrow. It's also, it is about what you have to do tomorrow, but it's also about what it is that you're trying to achieve. So let's suppose if you're working on a simple product, if it's a simple task, like you have to add a simple button that says okay. It's about adding that button, but it's also about what that button entails and why you're adding that button and what is that button going to do for your product. So another thing that it really helps in being agile is having customers collaborate with you, like 20, not 24/7, but very often. Because initially back when, Agile was not introduced, people used to, give like a lengthy, requirement document. Acha, hame ye chahiye, hame ye chahiye. This is something that we want. And then they are just, out of the picture. फिर एक लंबी चौड़ी सी टीम उसको काम करने का सोचती है, उसका पूरा breakdown तो बनाती है, and then they don't really collaborate with the customer again. I mean, not much. And then they just keep, developing in a silo. एक sequential based development होती है कि बस करना है, ये भी नहीं कि आसपास क्या हो रहा है, कोई नया प्रोडक्ट तो नहीं आ गया, कोई नई चीज तो नहीं आ गई. No, they have to just, जो day 1 पे उन्होंने decide किया होता है, they have to deliver that on day 30, just figuratively. So, in Agile, you need to have like customer feedback in like after every development. During the development, there's stuff that will change. There's stuff that you have to change. There's stuff that might not work from your end, and sometimes it might not work from the customer's end. So you need to be very quick in and respond to changes, respond to scope changes. So in this way, what we do is we don't build anything that is going to go to waste, and we don't do anything that is that is not going to bring value or quality to our product. And we create a lot of knowledge in the customer's end as well, because the customer is so collaborative. They understand what's going on. They understand how we're building stuff. So it's very important for them to understand what exactly is going to be delivered. And we deliver fast, we deliver in short sprints, and we deliver the right product at the right time. So there are a couple of Agile methodologies that companies follow. There's Scrum, the most famous one. There's Kanban, there's extreme programming. So there's all of these basically follow the basic rules of Scrum, of Agile, but they sort of change their process a bit, or their deliveries a bit. But the essence of it is, in the end, is the same, that they have to be very quick, very adaptive, and very responsive. So a study a couple of years ago, it proved that waterfall models are, more, they're more prone to failures than, the Agile models, because they don't have a lot of, room for improvement, room for changes. Yeah, there's a question.
So the thing is, Yusra, most of us are, I mean, like I am myself a software engineer, but most of the girls here are maybe not engineers, they are developers. So when you say something like waterfall model, could you please elaborate a little bit, because asking, but I'm sure it's not very clear to them at the moment.
Okay, that's okay. So basically what I was telling you earlier about, sequential development, where you have the scope and the backlog identified at day 1, and then that exact plan is followed till the end of the development, where you are releasing the entire product. So imagine that you have to build an e-commerce website, and the customer came to you and says that, I want to sell fruits and vegetables on my e-commerce website, and that's pretty much what I want to sell. And the interface should have a product page, a dashboard, a category landing page, a product page, and checkout, and that's it. That's pretty much it. So that scope, it is decided on day 1, and then that exact scope, like how the product page should look like, how the checkout should look like, it is followed till the release of the product into the market. So if in the middle of the development, the customer comes like, oh, I want to add dairy products as well, to that e-commerce website, or I want to add 2 payment methods in the website. So that is not possible when you're working in waterfall. When we're working in waterfall, it's always a sequential development. एक मॉड्यूल को आप डेवलप करेंगे, फिर दूसरे मॉड्यूल के ऊपर जाएंगे. लेट्स सपोज मैंने डिसाइड किया है कि मैं पहले प्रोडक्ट पेज पे काम करूंगी, फिर मैं लैंडिंग पेज पे काम करूंगी. तो वो जो इनिशियली डिसाइड हुआ होता है वही आप फॉलो करते हैं. बीच में कोई चेंजेस नहीं होते, बीच में कोई चीज़ें ऐड नहीं होती, बीच में कोई मॉडिफिकेशंस नहीं होती. तो होता ये है कि जो आपने फर्स्ट डे पे डिसाइड किया होता है वही आप एंड दिन में डिलीवर कर रहे होते हो. So there are no change requests that are entertained with the client. There are no modifications. So उससे होता ये है कि जो भी exterior elements होते हैं, let's suppose there's stuff that that the market does not need anymore, that you can't take care of that when you're working waterfall. It does work for like smaller projects. जैसे मैंने बहुत ही कोई छोटी सी website बनानी हो, एक landing page बनाना हो, then it works because उसमें इतने changes नहीं होते. But for bigger projects or products that are you have to launch in the market, you need to be very adaptive, and you need to entertain changes, and you need to entertain like the randomization of stuff as well. That it's not like कि मैंने एक ही चीज के ऊपर एक टाइम पे काम करना है. You have to work in parallel, and you have to work fast. So that's the difference basically between waterfall and agile. I hope I answered that for you. Okay. Moving on, how do you succumb to the Scrum? How do you understand what Scrum is? So Scrum basically, if I have to, explain Scrum in a few words, is that you're building your product one step at a time, and you're building your product one step at a time, and you're constantly making changes, improvements, modifications. Okay, so basically, like I mentioned before, like that e-commerce website, that you have a product backlog. These are the things that I want to build. These are the things that I wish that my product has. I wish that my my business fulfills. Whatever the product is, it doesn't matter. So let's suppose if it's an e-commerce website, the product backlog is going to define all of the features, user stories. If I'll talk a bit about user stories as well, but features, for the entire model, like imagine like the perfect product that you want, the perfect e-commerce product that you want. So that product backlog, the product owner defines the entire product backlog with the client. We sit with the client and we ask them, अच्छा इसमें क्या होना चाहिए, इस पेज पे क्या होगा, इस पेज पे क्या यूजर परफॉर्म करेगा. इतनी स्पेसिफिक्स में भी घुसते हैं कि कलर and interactions, आपकी जो है बटन की placements, all of it is defined in the product backlog. So imagine that you have a huge pile of rice, and you have to cook that entire rice at the end of the day, but your pot, the pot that you have is a small pot, obviously, because also you don't know which of the grains of the rice are right or wrong. You just know that you have to build it all, and some of the rice grains are more prioritized than the rest, so you need to build them sooner. Some of them may be built, you may be cooked later. So imagine that the product backlog is a big pile of rice, and you have to take out chunks of it, like little cups of it every now and then. So at the product so how to define what is going to come in that cup, that's in the sprint planning. And then the definition of the cup is the sprint backlog. So basically an excerpt of the product backlog is the sprint backlog. सो इमेजिन के आपके पास बहुत सारा काम है, उसमें से आपने चंद टास्क चूज किए कि अच्छा अगले 2 हफ्ते हम ये काम करेंगे, और फिर उसके बाद 2 हफ्ते के बाद आपने जो है रिव्यू किया, अच्छा हमने जो काम किया वो सही था, सही नहीं था, कोई और चेंजेस हो सकते हैं उसमें या नहीं हो सकते, और फिर उसके बाद आप दोबारा अभी उसमें कोई चेंजेस होते हैं तो आप उसको अगले 2 हफ्ते में ऐड कर लेते हैं, और नहीं होते तो उसको आप रिलीज कर देते हैं, और फिर दोबारा आप अपने बैकलॉग पे जाते हैं जो प्रोडक्ट बैकलॉग है, एंड देन यू पिक आउट अनदर कप. So that's basically what we do with sprint here, with Scrum here, that we take out chunks of our product backlog, and then we keep developing it, over the next few weeks. Usually, typically the sprint is 2 to 3 weeks, and the sprint team, the Scrum team, comprises of 7 to 8 people. I'll be talking about that in a bit. So basically, बताने का ये मतलब है कि for Scrum, you make sure that you're working fast, but you're not taking more than what you can afford, and you're working in smaller increments so that uh, issues are identified immediately, and changes are accepted immediately as well. So there are a couple of pillars that a couple of basic rules that we have to follow when we're working in a Scrum. It's basically we have to be transparent. Everything has to be written. Everything has to be explained to in terms of in such terms that the developer can understand it, and the business owner can understand it, the customer can understand it, and the project manager, product manager, everybody can understand it. It needs to be very transparent. ऐसा नहीं होता कि आप एक चीज you define one thing and then आप इतना specifics में चला जाओ, जैसे एक a developer will always talk differently than a product manager. So the product manager's job is to make sure that what you're saying is equally understandable to the developer and then to the business owner as well. Then adaptation, obviously, that you have to adapt to direction changes, you have to adapt to requirement changes, and you have to be very quick on your feet. Then inspection, after every sprint, you need to inspect what you're doing every day. In our daily meetings, you have to inspect what you're doing, see if you're doing it right, ask others if I'm doing it right. Okay. Basically, characteristics of Scrum is, हमारे पास organizing teams होती हैं. Like I said, the product, progresses in either 2 weeks or 3 weeks or maximum 4 weeks, or a month-long sprint. A sprint is basically, like I said, it's an excerpt of the entire product backlog, and a few of the tasks that we have in the product backlog prioritized by the product manager and the business owner. That's what we work on in a sprint. Requirements are captured as items, and this is it's basically to create an agile environment for delivering products, be adaptive, be fast. So now I'm going to break down Scrum a bit, exactly what goes down when we're talking about making a product in a Scrum method. So the composition of Scrum is, you have 3 main modules. You have your roles, that is the product owner. In this case, mostly it's also product owner / product manager. A Scrum Master, basically, the Scrum Master handles the entire sprint and the sprint delivery, and the team of, obviously, people who are working on the product, that is the software engineers, the database administrators, our QA engineers. And so basically there are some major events that happen in any Scrum project. Your sprint planning. So sprint planning is basically what you do, you identify the backlog of the sprint, you identify what work needs to be done. Your sprint review, after the sprint, you review all of the work that's been done, you demo the work for the client and the Scrum Master and the product owner. A sprint retrospective, basically where you're going back over the work that you did for the past 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then you sort of reflect on what work should have been done, or the work that was done is making you closer to the goal or not. And our daily Scrum meeting, that is a 15-minute daily sync up. I'm going to go over all of these in the next few slides, so don't worry if some things are not making sense. Then we have our artifacts. I mean, basically the outputs of the Scrum method. We have our product backlog that I mentioned. This is a prioritized feature list that the product owner makes in collaboration with the business owners. The sprint backlog and the burn down chart. So as you can see over here is that all of these people, the stakeholders, product owner, team, Scrum Master, they're all working towards a main goal. They all have certain tasks that they are fulfilling, and then there are certain channels that they have to go through. Talking about the product owner, so basically, as the product owner defines the feature of the products, the features of the product in collaboration with the business owner or the stakeholders. जो भी आपका एंड गोल होता है बिजनेस का, उसको जैसे अब आपके पास कोई भी कस्टमर आता है तो कस्टमर को तो चाहिए होता है कि मुझे ई-कॉमर्स वेबसाइट चाहिए. Getting into the specific of what exactly the website is supposed to do and how exactly it's supposed to work, what modules, what elements does it need to have, that's completely the responsibility of the product owner in collaboration with the business owner. So we have to prioritize the product backlog. We have to adjust the features and priority of the sprint, of the product backlog every sprint. And in the end, it is our responsibility to deliver a good product, the right product at the right time to the customer. So basically, whatever goes out is our responsibility as a product owner. It is a good responsibility, but with a lot of headache as well, because you are the sole person that has to be contacted for any product-related changes or modifications. Then we have our Scrum Masters. The Scrum Master basically handles the entire team, the Scrum team. Like I mentioned, there are 7 to 10 people most usually in a Scrum team. That they can be developers, engineers, etc. So they're responsible for enacting the Scrum values. If there are any during the sprint, during the 2-week sprint, if there are any issues, the developers, the engineers, they come to the Scrum Master. Let's suppose आप कहो कि यार मुझे नहीं लगता कि ये काम मैंने उस वक्त एस्टिमेट किया था कि इसमें 3 दिन लगेंगे, लेकिन अब जब मैंने काम शुरू किया है तो अब मुझे लग रहा है कि इसमें 5 दिन लगेंगे. So you'll take this to the Scrum Master, and the Scrum Master's responsibility is to handle the resources, handle the time, handle the release plan with in collaboration with the product owner. And basically, it's the Scrum Master becomes a mediator between the engineering team and the product owner. So the product owner will not go to the engineering team and say कि तुम मुझे ये वाला काम जो है ना कल करके दे दो. They have to go to the Scrum Master first, because they are responsible for the sprint and the sprint backlog. Then we have our team, our true heroes. They're cross-functional. They're programmers, testers, UI engineers, UI designers. Sometimes there's a database administrator as well. They're DevOps. These teams are self-organizing, and for every sprint, the composition is supposed to be the same, and they're supposed to work full-time on the product. So now, if there's any question, you guys can just add it on the chat and I'll get to it. Now the events of the Scrum, like I mentioned, we have our sprint planning. This is very important because this ideally makes sure that the next 2 weeks that the work that we're going to be doing is not going to waste. And it's something that is valuable to the product in the next couple of weeks and in the longer run as well. So the team selects items from the product backlog that they understand according to the priority. Obviously, because the product backlog is prioritized, especially by the product manager, product owner, and then according to the priority set by the customer, according to the priority set by the product owner, the sprint, the backlog is created for the sprint, and the task is identified, and there's an estimation for each task. So basically it depends on company to company, team to team, how they estimate their tasks. Basically, sometimes they do it with hours, sometimes they do it with days, sometimes they do it with story points. So basically, story point is how much work can be done in 1 hour or 2 hours. It basically varies. So this is always done, with the entire team, the Scrum Master and the product owner. This entire meeting is to discuss everybody's thoughts, discuss what the product goal is, and discuss what the sprint goal is. And the high level design, obviously, like I mentioned, is considered how to move towards the bigger picture. Then we have our daily Scrum meeting. This is very limited and quick. It has to happen daily and not more than 15 minutes. And if not happening virtually, we usually do it standing up, in a meeting room or, wherever you're sitting. If the team is sitting in the same space, then they just stand up, give their updates. And it's only for the team members and the Scrum Master and the product owner. And basically an everyday Scrum meeting helps to avoid unnecessary meetings, जब आप कहोगे अच्छा इस चीज के बारे में बात कर लेते हैं, लंबी बात हो जाती है, an hour, 2 hours, it's like it just goes on. So a Scrum meeting, tries to avoid that, because every day you're, giving an update about what you did and what you are, supposed to be doing for the next day. And it basically makes things easier for everybody. So a few questions that you need to answer, like as an engineer, as a team member, whether you're a QA, whether you're a developer, is what did I do yesterday that helped the team meet the sprint goal? What am I going to do today? And were there any issues? Were there any problems that will come in my way today, or that came in my way yesterday? So that all of those things can be discussed in that small window of the day, and the rest of the day is going to be very productive as possible. Then we have our Scrum review or a demo. This happens at the end of each sprint. Let's suppose after every 2 weeks, you're delivering, you have to deliver, let's suppose in easier terms, Monday to next Friday आपकी sprint है, और आपने Friday को एक चीज release करनी है. So at the end of the sprint, like at Thursday, the team is going to show what they did in the entire sprint to the product owner, to the Scrum Master. And वो सारी चीजें Scrum Master, product owner test करते हैं, review करते हैं, and उसमें कोई changes होते हैं तो वो next sprint में add हो जाता है. अगर कोई changes नहीं होते तो वो good to go हो जाता है. And then the maximum duration for this sort of a meeting is 2 hours. That is also like stretching it for a 2-week sprint. Then you have a sprint retrospective meeting. This is done after the release as well. Basically, we look at with the customer कि हमने इस पिछले 2 हफ्ते में क्या किया. Could something have been done better? कुछ चीजें हमें improve करनी चाहिए थी या नहीं? Or if there's something that needs to be added, some practice that needs to be changed. This is something that we do, after every sprint, just to make sure that, what we're doing is not going to waste, except because like it's a very core principle of being agile is to, eliminate waste and not, add stuff, not waste your time on stuff that's not supposed to be, used. Then we have our artifacts of our sprint. Basically, the output of a sprint of a scrum. We have our product backlog. This is the requirements in the form of user stories. Basically, वो यही वाली बात है कि customer के साथ बैठ के आपने पूरा उनका process, उनका पूरा use case समझा के what exactly is that that they're looking for. And then you break it down into user stories. User stories आपकी जो है in terms of the user's perspective होती हैं कि user को क्या चाहिए, user को क्या दिखना चाहिए, user को क्या interaction देनी चाहिए, और user को क्या behavior, how the system is going to interact with the user. So it is prioritized by the product owner in terms of, after understanding the entire business idea with the customer. And it is also reprioritized at the start of each sprint. Like I mentioned in the sprint retrospective meeting, कि हम लोग उस वक्त डिसाइड करते हैं कि जो हमने 2 हफ्ते में किया वो हमें करना चाहिए था या नहीं. Or is there something that needs to be done immediately? Is there something that just came up with the client and we have to do it really immediately? So these are things that we have to look at every sprint. So usse kya hota hai, like I mentioned in the start about being agile, is after every couple of days, and especially every day as well, you are revisiting what you're doing and you're rethinking about your decisions, and you're making sure that आप जैसे दिन में अब 8 घंटे होते हैं, तो उस 8 घंटे में आपने कोई भी ऐसा काम ना किया हो जो कि आगे जाके काम ना आए. प्रोडक्ट को, आपके जो प्रोडक्ट का जो गोल है उसके ऊपर उस पे काम नहीं आए तो फिर फायदा नहीं हुआ आपने उसके ऊपर 1 घंटा भी लगाया या 5 मिनट भी लगाया. So this is basically sort of a backlog, product backlog example, where we've identified the priority, the estimated effort, what major project or epic it belongs to, who's the assignee, what's the due date. A few, the important things that we need to identify, when we're building the sprint backlog. It helps us to prioritize these things and select the best possible sprint backlog. Then we have our sprint backlog, like I mentioned, that these user stories are picked out of the sprint planning and retrospective meetings. So hota ye hai, in an ideal scenario, that the product backlog is defined in the sprint review meeting, and then that product backlog is uploaded onto a product management tool, whether it's Jira or Trello or whatever it is. And then according to the domain of the engineer, let's suppose एक बंदा हमारे पास front end का है, एक बंदा हमारे पास back end का है, एक हमारे पास database का बंदा है. So all of those people will just pick up a task according to their domain and start working on it. So the end goal is to fulfill all of those tasks. कोई sequence required नहीं होती कि अच्छा नहीं मैंने पहले ये task उठाना है, पहले ये task उठाना है. Because at the end of the day, at the end of the sprint, you have to deliver all of those. So it doesn't really matter what you're doing first, as long as you're delivering them all at the end of the sprint. And if there's something that's unclear, we add the sprint backlog item, but when the developer starts working on it, then they break it down into smaller subtasks. This is an ideal sprint board that it's usually this is like a generic sprint board where you have your to-do list items, you have stuff that you have in development, stuff that you have to review, stuff that is in QA or UAT, and then you have your ready to release tasks and you have your release tasks. So basically, this is used for tracking the progress of a sprint and the team, what an individual is doing, and how the sprint is actually moving forward. There are a few, very famous project management tools that teams use, whether it's Jira, Trello, or Asana. Goal यही होता है end में. Like obviously, a few of them have more, features than the other, but for a sprint board, the goal is to track the progress or track, how we're going with the sprint. जो हमने Monday को चीज define की थी कि हम लोगों ने बाकी के 2 हफ्ते ये करना है, उसकी क्या progress है और वो किस तरह से, how we're moving forward with it, whether there are any problems, whether there's any issues that need to be solved. Then we have our burn down chart. Basically the burn down chart is, it just shows the amount of work remaining per sprint. Let's suppose on Thursday, I want to know that, how much work is in the sprint is done and how much is left. Just this is basically used to, manage the time and the resources. अगर एक resource एक task पर बहुत सारा काम कर रही है and they're working more than the estimated time, and उनको दूसरे tasks के लिए time नहीं मिल रहा है, and then I mean a Scrum Master has to sort of go back and sit with the engineer and talk about how exactly should we improve the productivity of the sprint. Whether you want me to remove the pending tasks from this because things are moving forward slower than we're expecting, or whether you want somebody else to take up that task. So all of these things are we make those decisions and we look at the burn down chart. Is the sprint working? I mean, is the sprint and the team working as we're expecting it to be or not? So a few benefits of why we are why companies choose to be agile. To improve product quality, as I mentioned, there's transparency throughout the team, there's transparency throughout the business stakeholders. Nothing is happening without the knowledge of everybody else. There's flexibility, you're more adaptive to changes, you're more responsive to risks and problems that come up. You have maximum productivity. Since you communicate so often with everybody, there's increased communication and there's cooperation because everybody is working towards a single goal. Then I did a few then there's a few things that a Scrum Master should know if you guys are looking to move forward, in a Scrum Master position or product owner position. So you need to know, advantages of Scrum, like I mentioned, how it improves the productivity and allows changes. The Scrum cycle and duration and participants, like I mentioned, like a 2-week sprint, and we have our product owner, our Scrum Master, our team, our user stories, how to define user stories in a user-based perspective, how to break the product backlog into a user story, the artifacts of Scrum, like I mentioned, the product backlog, the sprint backlog, the burn down charts, the sprint specifics, exactly how the sprint is going to go, what users, what participants are involved, the role of a Scrum Master, how the Scrum Master needs to handle the entire sprint and the sprint resources, responsibilities of a Scrum Master. So there's a question that, don't you think increased communication is a problem? So basically it varies from team to team as well. But in this case, increased communication is not in the frequency of the meetings. Increased communication in an agile environment is basically increased channels of communication. So basically, लाइक आई मेंशन कि हमारे पास डेली मीटिंग्स होती हैं. अब इंक्रीज कम्युनिकेशन का ये मतलब नहीं है कि आप डेली मीटिंग्स जो हो रही हैं वो 2-3 घंटे की हो रही हैं. क्योंकि वो मीटिंग्स डेली हो रही हैं तो वो जो चीज़ हम लोग मे बी एट द एंड ऑफ द वीक हम लोगों को 4 घंटे लगते समझने में, वो चीज़ उसी वक्त 15 मिनट के अंदर अंदर यू नो वी टेक केयर ऑफ दैट. और जो हमारी स्प्रिंट रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव मीटिंग्स होती हैं उसमें हम लोग जो चीजें हम in the future avoid कर सकते हैं, we talk about that. So increased communication is not about the frequency but channels. I hope that answered. Okay, Nergis has a question. That's it from my end in terms of the topics that I had to cover. Now I'll be taking questions. Nergis, you can go
Miss,
ahead.
I want to ask. मिस मुझे पूछना था कि ये आप स्क्रम के बारे में बता रही, तो ये स्क्रम कोई ऐसा लाइक प्रॉपर सॉफ्टवेयर है जिसपे जो है वो हम जाके पूरा बैकलॉग बना सकते हैं और फिर उसमें से स्प्रिंट एक्सट्रैक्ट करते हैं, या क्लाइंट से जब वो कम्युनिकेशन आप उस पर कर सकते हो? मतलब ये एक सॉफ्टवेयर है या सिर्फ एक ये थॉट प्रोसेस है, एक कॉन्सेप्ट है कि भाई इस तरीके से आप पूरी टीम को लेके चलो, जब आप एक बिजनेस हेड बन जाओ या प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर बन जाओ तो आप इस तरीके से टीम को लेके चलो, या फिर कोई मतलब प्रॉपर इसके लिए प्लेटफॉर्म भी दिया गया है?
अच्छा, सो बेसिकली स्क्रम जो है एक मेथोडोलॉजी, इट्स अ प्रोसेस. लेकिन स्क्रम को फॉलो करने के लिए आपके पास सॉफ्टवेयर मौजूद है. जैसे मैंने मेंशन किया कि जीरा है और आपका ट्रेलो है, असाना है. तो बेसिकली स्क्रम in itself is a process, it's a methodology, it's an idea कि आपने किस तरह से एक प्रोसेस को फॉलो करना है, किस तरह से आपने अपने प्रोडक्ट को बिल्ड करना है. उसको फैसिलिटेट करने के लिए आपके पास जैसे जीरा है, आपके पास इस तरह के जो टूल्स हैं जहाँ पे आप प्रोडक्ट बैकलॉग बना सकते हो, जहाँ पे आप क्या कहते हैं वहाँ पे आप स्प्रिंट बोर्ड बना सकते हो. बट टू बी वेरी क्लियर, ये Scrum is not a software. So Scrum is basically a way or a process to build your software. तो हो सकता है कि आप मैन्युअली एक्सेल पे या वर्ड पे जाके अपना प्रोडक्ट बैकलॉग लिख रहे हो, और यूजुअली कभी मतलब इनिशियली यही होता है कि आप अपने एक्सेल पे जाके या किसी भी इस तरह के नोटपैड टूल पे जाके अपने सारे फीचर्स लिख लेते हो, and then you transform it into user stories in your or backlog items into your software. तो जहाँ पे वो फैसिलिटी नहीं अवेलेबल होती कि आपके पास वो सॉफ्टवेयर नहीं है, वहाँ पे आप वो चीज़ मैनुअल कर रहे होते हो, बट द एसेंस इज द सेम. The entire process is the same, that you have a product backlog and then you have a sprint backlog and then you have a sprint board कि आज हमने ये किया, कल हमने ये किया, परसों हम ये करेंगे. I hope that answers your question. You have another question? Sure.
या मिस एक और क्वेश्चन ये था कि जैसे जब क्लाइंट के साथ फर्स्ट मीटिंग होती है, आप डिसाइड करते हो कि भाई आपने फॉर एग्जांपल ई कॉमर्स की वेबसाइट बनानी है, ठीक है, फिर इसके बाद उसको पूरा डिजाइन किया जाता है ना, लाइक पीएचडी उसकी बनती है, फिर हम उस पीएचडी पे काम कर रहे होते हैं, बाकी जो पूरी टीम होती है. तो अब आपने जैसे इसमें पूरे बताया कि भाई डेली मीटिंग्स हो रही होती हैं और जो है वो टाइम टू टाइम अगर कुछ नई चीज मार्केट में आई है वो हमें एड ऑन करनी है, या कोई चीज हमें लग रही वेस्ट है तो वो हटा देनी है, तो वो क्या मतलब बार बार आप पीएचडी चेंज करवाते हो कि भाई अब ये बटन निकाल दो या ये चीज अब हमें नहीं हटा देनी है, तो वो पीएचडी चेंज हो रही होती है या इसमें पीएचडी नहीं बनती, डिजाइन नहीं होता, किस तरीके से होता है?
सो हर प्रोडक्ट का जो है प्रोसेस अलग होता है. प्रोडक्ट की नीड के हिसाब से अगर आपको जैसे अब इफ आई टॉक अबाउट द प्रोडक्ट डेवलपमेंट and that's a different story of its own, but मैं आपको थोड़ा सा एक्सप्लेन कर देती हूँ. सो बेसिकली आपका एज अ प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर या आप एज अ प्रोडक्ट ओनर, आप जो फीचर लिस्ट होती है आप उसमें से एक टास्क उठाते हो, उसको आप डिफाइन करते हो, उसका आप वायर फ्रेम बनाते हो, और फिर यू गेट अ डिजाइनर टू मेक पीएसटी फॉर इट. कभी कभार ऐसा होता है कि बीच में PhD की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती, but that's completely in terms of what the product needs or how the product needs to go to market. तो जैसे अब आप एक बटन की बात कर रही हो, हाँ ऐसा ही होता है। लेट्स सपोज कि लेकिन बीच में आपको कोई भी नहीं कहेगा कि नहीं मुझे इसमें चेंज कर दो। स्प्रिंट के बीच में आप चेंजेस नहीं इंक्लूड करते, इसीलिए हम स्प्रिंट डेमोज और स्प्रिंट रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव मीटिंग्स करते हैं कि आपके पास कोई चेंज आया है तो आप उस चेंज को फिर नेक्स्ट स्प्रिंट में इम्प्लीमेंट करो। तो being agile is that's why we're being agile, so that अभी एक चीज रेलेवेंट पिछले हफ्ते थी लेकिन अगले हफ्ते नहीं है। जैसे आप अगर आप किसी भी प्रोडक्ट की सोशल मीडिया कैंपेन्स देखते हैं या इस तरह की चीज देखते हैं, एक चीज एक हफ्ते रेलेवेंट होती है, अगले हफ्ते रेलेवेंट नहीं होती। सो लेट्स सपोज वी आर वर्किंग ऑन अ पोस्टर डिजाइन और अ बैनर फॉर एन ई-कॉमर्स वेबसाइट। तो हो सकता है कि एक चीज आपने जो बैनर बनाया है वो इस हफ्ते ट्रेंडिंग है या रेलेवेंट है, अगले हफ्ते नहीं है। So you have to be adaptive to that change. Did that answer your question, or is there anything else?
Okay, everyone, if there's nothing else that you probably need to ask or understand, we should be closing the session, because ideally the time was from 5 to 6 p.m. and Ms. Yusra has other commitments also. We are so thankful to her that she took time out for this thing. And
I'm happy to help.
It's been really kind of her. बहुत डिटेल में और बहुत ब्रेक डाउन करके उन्होंने एक्सप्लेन किए हैं सारे पॉइंट्स. Still, if you people have a question, please put it up. Otherwise, we should be wrapping this up.
No, thank you all for coming here as well. I'm happy to share what I've learned in the past couple of years with anybody who wants to learn. So you guys can contact me later for any issues as well and any questions that you have. And I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as I can.
Thanks a lot. That's really kind of you. Okay, everyone. Take care.
Okay. Allah Hafiz, everybody. I hope you had a great time listening to me. Okay. Thank you.